Hello, my name is Kevin Kendrow, and I serve as the Supervisor of Athletics and Extracurricular Activities for Frederick County Public Schools. While it's certainly not a normal year for interscholastic athletics across the state of Maryland and across our country, FCPS has been working hard to provide our student athletes and coaches with safe and meaningful opportunities to re-engage while participating in voluntary small group conditioning and skill-based practices as part of our return to play, commonly referred to as RTP process. The same commitment to our students and their safety holds true for our marching band activities and as we look to expand in-person extracurricular and co-curricular opportunities for our students. With me today to discuss return to play and recent RTP updates is Governor Thomas Johnson High School's Coordinator of Athletics, Extracurricular Activities, Facilities, and Campus Improvement, Mike Chavez. Welcome, Mr. Chavez, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
Mr. Chavez, you have served as an athletic director representative on the RTP committee since the committee was formed in late June. From the beginning, our top priority has been the health and safety of our student athletes, coaches, and all athletic stakeholders. Can you explain how the committee has ensured that the health and safety of our student athletes and all athletic stakeholders has remained our top priority?
Of course. So the RTP committee has had multiple meetings throughout the summer and then also through the fall. And it's always been the safety and well-being of all of our student athletes and coaches and anyone involved. So the first thing we had to think about was how will we get the students registered? So normally in a regular season, we would have students register online. We felt it was important for them to do the same process because that gives us our permission from our parents, a release of insurance. It also gives us our contact information if we need that. The second thing that each student athlete needs to have is a current physical. Those physicals need to be dated after or on April 1st, 2020 or after that date. The third piece that they need is a COVID-19 acknowledgement release that FCPS has provided for us for each athlete. So once all those athletes have those three pieces, they are then registered for the RTP pods. When they come in, the next thing we had to think about is how we were going to check in all the athletes into the school. So as we were developing the pods, in conjunction with our coaches, we wanted to create pods of less than 15 student athletes, and we also wanted to create check-in time, predetermined check-in times, so the student athletes would all come at different times so we can maintain the safety. We marked out a spot in our area to check in with a tent. Frederick County Public Schools has contracted the Pivot athletic trainers for each school. So those trainers are there to do the check-ins. They ask the students a series of questions related to COVID and their health to make sure that they're cleared each day. We keep track of that information on a sheet of paper, like a check-in every week, so that we can keep that information in case we need to contact the health department with contact tracing. So we have all that there. And we replace those sheets every week. So we have a new sheet for every week that they come in. Every student athlete, every coach has to check in every day, the same process. We mark the spots on on the grass 6 feet apart, 15 spots, so when they line up, they get lined up, they come in one at a time. Every student athlete and coach has to wear a mask when they check in. Once they get checked in and they move to their space and they maintain their 6 feet of social distance, then they can remove masks.
Thank you for answering that question. One thing that sticks out to me is we actually had our colleagues from Montgomery County come to Frederick County's public schools, specifically Governor Thomas Johnson High School, and do a site visit. And can you explain what you actually had their supervisor of athletics, a few of their athletic directors go through when they came to observe RTP at TJ High School?
Yeah, like one of the most important pieces is the check-in. So I asked all of those folks that came in from Montgomery County to actually go through that process. So we had them line up on the lines, they went through, and each one of them was checked in by our trainer before they could actually go in to see the rest of the pods and what they were doing in their pods.
Well, I appreciate you doing that. I know Dr. Sullivan from Montgomery County was very appreciative of you doing that.
Sure.
So currently, FCPS is one of 21 school systems across the state that is operating under the MPSSAA, Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association's 2-semester plan for interscholastic athletics. In the 2-semester plan, it calls for modified, shortened competitive seasons during the 2nd semester, then opportunities for school systems to re-engage students in athletics during the 1st semester. FCPS has chosen to do in-person voluntary conditioning and skill-based practices. Can you explain how those practices are structured and what is involved?
Sure. So once the student athletes are checked in and cleared, they move to their assigned areas with their coaches. We make sure that we ask the coaches to kind of place markers on the ground 6 feet apart so that if the students bring any water bottles or personal items, they can put those in those places so that during any kind of break or water break, then they go to those spots so they maintain that 6 feet. The workouts are totally voluntary for our student athletes. There are no fees, there are no tryouts, so everyone is welcome to come. We maintain those pods between 10 and 15 student athletes to help with keep the numbers as far apart. And once they're set up, then they can spread out on those fields. They can take their masks off. They don't have to. We told them they can if they want. But anytime that they can't maintain that 6 feet of social distance, they have to wear a mask. So anytime there's any kind of instruction from a coach and they bring them a little closer together, masks have to be on. We ask our coaches all the time to wear a mask all the time. That way, because they are giving the verbal, with the spray and things like that, we want to make sure that everyone is safe. The workouts, we tell our coaches at TJ High School that we are preparing to make our student athletes better. We're not preparing for competition. We're not worrying about winning a game on Thursday or Friday. Right now, we're working on making our programs better. So it's a great opportunity for our coaches to work on fundamentals, which I think sometimes once we get into the season, we're worried about competitions, we lose that fundamental basis. And the foundation of sports is fundamentals. So this has been great for our student athletes and our coaches to work on fundamentals.
Now, there have been some changes to our RTP procedures. Based on student athlete, coach, and athletic director feedback, we've made some minor adjustments, beginning with our fall RTP, which has concluded, changes to our current spring RTP, and then we have future changes or modifications in place for our upcoming winter RTP season. Can you touch base on what are those changes?
Yeah, so even from the transition from the summer, when we started in the summer, we just did all conditioning. There was no equipment involved. But as we moved forward into the fall, our RTP committee felt that it was important to start to introduce some equipment into the activities. So the RTP committee actually met, went through sport by sport, and decided what would be appropriate equipment that we could use, that we could also be able to maintain the social distancing. Because we're still, we're not doing anything with 1-on-1s, 3-on-3s, 7-on-7s, no scrimmaging, so it's all no contact. So we didn't want to use sleds or bags that would be multiple contact for some of the sports. So we decided we're going to move into the equipment. When we started in the fall, we still had the first week still had some conditioning components in there. As we transitioned to the spring, a couple of our athletic directors and coaches, made a couple clear points that with baseball and softball, part of conditioning is throwing. So, and you can't throw without having equipment. So we made a decision that we would just start allowing that equipment that was appropriate for each sport. So as we move forward, we're now using equipment from day one. They can still do conditioning if they want to, but they can also introduce equipment right away. For the winter, Board of Ed has now given us permission to work inside. So I'm sure our next RTP committee, which is coming up very soon, we're going to talk about the guidelines and expectations for indoor facilities and use for that. Because as of right now, we've been outside unless there's been an emergency where we would need to bring our student athletes in for safety.
I'm glad you mentioned student athlete and coach feedback. Our RTP committee, again, for which you serve on, has been encouraged to seek feedback from student athletes and coaches across the county. And so that feedback that we received is one of the reasons we made that change of, hey, week one, doesn't necessarily have to be conditioning. Let's jump right into skill work and make it as fun as possible for our students. So in addition for our upcoming winter season to be allowed to be conducted inside, our RTP committee will be working on plans to allow small group access to weight rooms beginning in December. Why do you feel that it is important that our teams and our student athletes get back in the weight room?
Yeah, strength is always going to be important when you're dealing with athletics. Most of our student athletes across the county have not been in weight rooms since March. All the weight rooms were closed. Even across the state, the gyms were closed. Once they started to open up the gyms, then you have limited access. Some of our communities in Frederick County may not have the resources our student athletes have the resources to, join a gym or get personal trainers. So it's important for all of us to get into the gym. I know at TJ High School last year, we had to shut down our program due to our numbers, and also for safety concerns, just for strength and just concern about competition with, stronger and more physical teams. Football is a very physical sport, so it's going to be important for all of us to get into the weight rooms all across the county to prepare our students for any type of competitive season we may have in the spring. I mean, you look across the colleges and NFLs, there's been a rise of injuries. And I think if you ask strength and conditioning coaches, they're going to say, well, because they don't have a lot of time to prepare to get ready for the physicality of those sports.
Yeah, since last week's board meeting, I have received a few emails from coaches, excited about potentially getting back in the weight room. So thanks again for discussing that. One final recommendation of the Return to Play Committee is to explore the potential of a modified 2-semester plan. So taking the current 2-semester plan, which involves competition beginning in February, and maybe moving that competitive season to January or December, which in turn would help make the seasons a little bit longer and maybe not have the overlap, which are some of the concerns that we have heard. What are your feelings? Why do you feel like that is an option, if presented, that we should explore?
Well, I think anytime we're able to offer as much opportunity for our student athletes, we need to be able to do that. The extending this season is going to help us. Cutting down on the overlap is going to be great for our student athletes, for our coaches, for athletic directors as far as facilities, because that was going to be one of the critical concerns that we would have as far as facilities, because we're going to have multiple sports going at the same time. Under the current MPSSA plan, you have about a 2-week overlap. Now, normally you would have an overlap anyway with state competitions, so you're kind of used to that. But a 2-week overlap is a lot of time, because to say I am a track coach and I'm coaching indoor track and we do well and there's some type of competitive season at the end, well, I got to finish that season, but I'm also now starting cross country because in the fall starts. So I could be coaching two totally different sports with 2 totally different athletes. But then also our student athletes then have to choose, I'm primarily a baseball player, but I was caught up in football, but now I don't want to do football, I want to do baseball. Do I just leave so it makes it difficult, because then student athletes have to choose. So anytime we can create more opportunity for our student athletes and coaches, I think it's the best plan we could do.
I think you summarized that very well. Opportunities for our students, encouraging them to play in multiple sports. And again, the feedback we have received from coaches and student athletes have been, hey, it's 2-semester plan, we like it, but that seasonal overlap is going to present challenges. Mr. Chavez, I want to thank you for taking the time to discuss RTP with me here today, and also for your ongoing service on our Return to Play Committee. It is greatly appreciated.
Of course, my pleasure.
With the success of RTP interscholastic athletics and marching band activities, and with Board of Education approval, FCPS plans to safely expand in-person extracurricular activity opportunities for our students, as well as offer and support all in-person co-curricular activities. As interscholastic athletics, extracurricular and co-curricular expansion and enhancement plans are being finalized, FCPS will continue to collaborate with the Frederick County Health Department, and our commitment to the health and safety of our students, coaches, advisors, teachers, and their families will remain our guiding principle. For more information, please visit our website, www.fcps.org, and click on FCPS Reopening Plans on the right side of the screen under Quick Links. There, you will see a link for athletics and all COVID-19 return to play communications and resources. Thank you.